Steve Durkins.
Chris. One would say Salim.
That's good.
You say Salim, right?
Yeah. You know.
Because it could be Salim.
It could. My uncle says Salim.
Is it equally Salim? That's like my last name too.
My dad says Salim.
Really?
Yeah.
You say Salim.
I say Salim because in French we say Selim, so it's pretty closer to the French accent. So
there was no difference.
But sometimes I could be at the store and say, "Hey, my name is Chris Salim,"
and people would know how to spell it. Maybe.
Yes, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, because mine is same. My mom says Deerkins and my dad says Durkins.
Oh, interesting.
And they're married like 55 years and they still fight about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's the only fight they fight about, I guess.
No.
If only.
But they're married 55 years.
Hey, you know.
And she still might leave him. It keeps him on his toes. He knows it. And then he'd starve. So
what should I call you, Steve? Durkins or Deerkins?
Salayim, I don't care.
I'm gonna
do both.
I'm going to stick with Durkins.
Yeah, whatever comes out. I've been called worse.
So, okay, let's talk about mixing.
That's what we do.
That's what we do.
We try.
That's what we try to do. Okay. When is a mix done?
Yeah.
That's going to be the topic for today's podcast.
Yeah, this came up at, I think, one of our breakfasts once.
I know.
I think one of us was having the complaint. And the complaint that most of us mix guys have is, when is a mix done? Mm-hmm. Between us knowing it and the client knowing it, it's not always the same time.
No, you're right.
Us knowing it and like the client's boyfriend knowing it.
Or mom.
There's a third time, fourth time for mom, fifth time for their nephew who also does mixing and thinks the mix needs to be restarted. So yeah, there I don't think there's a fixed answer to when is a mix done.
Okay, but as a mixer, like when you mix a song yourself, like you mix a song for a client, for yourself, whatever, you know, when do you feel the mix is done and you're ready to send it to your client?
Yeah.
We're not talking about revisions.
I was going to say, because there's stages of done.
Yeah, well, let's go with stage one.
Stage one, at what point do I let them see the painting that I'm painting? Yes. Because there is that thing where it's like, you know, you start and they're like, I hate it, it's all wrong. And I'm like, well, I still got to unmute the guitars and the singer and the bass. I was just working on the snare. And they're like, oh. So there's that piece. So when do I let them in to hear what I think is, and I call it, in my thing, it's called an S mix. So I get to a point where it's kind of I call it the S mix, the Steve mix. So it's not mix one. So it's kind of the S mix where it goes for me. That's where I normally take it out and I'll put it in the car or I'll take it to my headphones or whatever. It's an internal S mix. And if that's decent, I then send that on. And so to me, that is, for lack of a better way to think of it in real time, at what percent done is it? For me, that's 85.
Okay. So my question is then, when, in your opinion, when you mix a song, when do you consider a mix 100% done?
Never.
Nice. I like that. All right.
I think honestly.
See you next week.
Yep. Shortest podcast ever. And boring. No, I think it depends. It depends on time, budget, complexity. There are complex answers, right? A 3-piece jazz thing gets done way quicker and easier, and the bar is in a different place than a tight, perfectly quantized, every track pop thing, right? Like they're two different with 86 background vocals in the third chorus. Like that's a different level.
You're starting to sound like a politician,
right?
Now.
It's a different. It's always been my dream.
It's like just a simple question.
I would last 8 minutes in politics.
You're doing a pretty good job right now. I don't know.
When is it done? When is it done? It's done when I genuinely don't think I can make a big move.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Nice.
I get to the point where I'm like, I'm just rearranging food on my plate. When I'm totally full, I don't want any more food. I'm not hungry anymore, but I'm still moving the things on my plate. It's that. I'm done eating this.
You're still playing with your food.
Take this plate away, please. Somebody come and get it.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
And so maybe that's, for lack of a...
Yeah. Which is close to me also. That, you know, where I'm at the point where, okay, just 0.5 dB louder on that snare. Okay, when I'm at that point, okay,
Yeah.
just
And I've
bounce
been
it.
doing this now for
Bounce
25
it.
minutes, and I just need to
Yeah,
walk away.
those tiny moves. you know.
Those. Yeah, that's it. And sometimes, you know, and so then to caveat that, and, you know, as the politician I am, I'm becoming in real time in my hoodie.
Man, we're looking for a new adventure.
I was going to say the world needs some decent politicians everywhere at this point. So
Maybe we should jump in.
I'm looking around and I'm like, the bar is not high. Now could be our moment. It's the caveat being, do you move food around on your plate knowing that they might bring more food to your plate? Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm done, but I don't love this guitar solo. I know the guy's going to want to play it again. Or I've tried something here. I've put the whole mix into kind of a slightly lo-fi scenario, or I've monoed a bit more than, but all the mixes they gave me were really wide, but I really want to pitch this to them or whatever. So sometimes there's that. There's the, I think I'm done, but in the back of my head, I'm like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. What I do on my side, honestly, I'm going to try to, if I work with a client, I'm going to try to bring the mix like at my 100%.
Yes.
Okay. Before I listen to it again with a fresh pair of ears.
Yes.
Okay. But to my, the best 100% I can possibly guess
Yes.
on the first run.
Yes.
When I send it to the client after, now we get into mix revisions,
Yeah.
which we can cover in this podcast
Oh,
also
we
if you
will.
want to.
Oh, yeah.
But then we're into little tweaks.
Yeah.
You know, nothing major.
Yeah.
If there's something major, there's a problem, a communication problem somewhere.
Yep.
That was lost in translation.
Yep.
So I don't know if that answers the question you you had, but
a bit.
you know.
A bit. Yeah, and it's not often that I'll do a bold pitch in a mix. But there are times when I'm like, man, I feel really strongly about this. Like, I really, really think this whole jazz thing needs to be brought out of the booth that we recorded it in and put into kind of more of a stage. Or there's these kind of things.
Yeah.
Where they go, man, I don't know what you did, but this sounds amazing. That's the hope. Sometimes, I don't know what you did, but you broke my dreams. Or whatever. That happens sometimes too, right? So there's a bit of that. So that would be the caveat to my 100%, but maybe I still have 20%.
There's the
I
100%.
gotta keep 20% in the bank.
Yeah.
Right? So that.
Because this is something cool to do as a mixer when you work with clients and stuff. Sometimes you hear stuff, you know, that, okay, it's maybe unconventional or something you want to try out and you want to experiment with, you know, you want to try to bring that song maybe at a point where it wasn't planned by the artist, but man, it would be so cool to get to that point.
I want to take the whole bridge and put it through a phase mistress.
Yeah, no,
so
exactly.
that when the bridge ends, it goes back to or whatever, right? It's that. And you know, like, this could totally be the coolest thing ever or terrible. And I don't know. I'm just trying it because I heard it and I couldn't unhear it in my head.
Yeah.
That happens.
And sometimes the artist is going to say, oh, that's so cool. I want to keep that. And
or they don't even notice.
No, put it back to where it was before.
Or they don't even comment on it. It just sounds great. They just go, sounds great. And I'm like, I put your whole mix at the bottom of a well.
For that cool effect.
I did it in Spanish. And they're like, yeah, sounds great.
And you said nothing?
Those are the clients we like. I don't have many of those.
As long as they pay, you know?
That's right. Give me my $18. Canadian.
Canadian.
That's €1, by the way. Oh, what a time. What a time.
Oh, man, yeah. Good time to be alive.
So as you mix, at what point what are your milestones to completion? You know, I had the S mix, so that's my 85%.
Sure.
I could present this and say, I'm 85% done. I got ideas, and don't judge me on everything. I still want to do some things. And I feel confident enough in it. Like, at what point do you let it into the wild?
When I can dance to it, you know. It's like, you know, when I can feel the...
I've seen that.
No, I know you did.
You guys do a lot of things great. But.
No, but you know, like for me, a mix that is like at the point of being done is a mix that I can actually kind of feel the groove.
And do you ever,
you know?
So do you have a point before done that you would print it? Or do you only print it at 100%?
I try to print it at the closest.
That's interesting.
Possible. Unless,
I've never talked to anybody about this. I always print it like 85.
Interesting.
For myself. So I can take it away And that last 15% incorporates what I learned by listening to it in my living room or my car or my...
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right? And so my internal little S-mix
But that's
thing...
before you send it to a client.
Unless I think it's pretty decent. And then I will send it to the client.
But that's your 100% then.
And go, no. I'd send them an 85 and tell them it's an 85 and say, do you have any thoughts as I finish this from this?
No, but you're sending out, like for me, when I send it out to my 100%, that doesn't mean it's the final 100%. You know, because like even myself, I'm going to listen to the mix after. The client's going to listen to the mix after. And I'm going to have my own notes.
Okay, so your 100 is my 85.
Probably. That's what I'm.
We're having the same conversation.
Yeah. I think we're talking about the same thing.
So in the back of my head, I've got $15 in the bank when I send my 85.
Yeah, that's why I was saying that. You know, the 100%. It's the first 100% basically.
Okay.
So I'm getting like the best I can do on the first run.
I get you.
Okay. So this is what I can do on the first run.
I get
Then
you.
I'm going to take a couple of days off or whatever.
Okay.
And when I come back, of course I'm going to hear some stuff. The client's going to hear some stuff. Sometimes they just don't. And the first one is like,
or they send back 6
perfect
pages.
mix, whatever. But I do have notes. Not real. Like, you know, if there's someone who's going to have notes, it's going to be me.
Yeah, I always have notes.
So yeah, same here.
Always.
I'm always going to tweak things around, you know. So that is my 100% on the first run.
Okay. Interesting.
But then we enter the
we're
mix
6 and a
revisions.
half dozen conversation
exactly,
is what we're having right now.
Totally.
It's good.
So we're talking about the same thing.
I'm glad you all got to be a part of that. If we were true professionals, we would have done this yesterday.
And by the way, it's funny because we come with these topics, you know, for the podcast, and we look at each other before starting the podcast. Like, should we talk about this before we? It's like, no, let's have the conversation.
Let's go on a journey
on the podcast. You know,
Yeah.
You have your thoughts, I have mine.
Yeah.
And let's just talk about it. You know, and this is what I like about this podcast and the way it's going right now. So,
do you think in French?
Yes.
You just said your thoughts, and it popped into my head. It's totally random. I'm sorry.
I know.
Again, we could have had this conversation yesterday. Do you? Yeah. Do you think in French when you're speaking English, or do you switch to the language you're speaking in?
It's funny because I'm in a weird zone. Okay. It depends. It's weird because when I always find it a challenge to make some content in English because it's not my first language. It's not my native language. So I always struggle a bit, you know?
Yeah.
But the thing is, if I start doing content in French, I also struggle because I'm kind of in the middle. But I do, you know, of course I'm French, so I do speak French pretty well. And I speak French with my wife.
In your house,
and this is what, you know, we speak French all the time, you know? So, but yeah, I feel like in the gray zone, in kind of a middle zone where I'm bad at French and I'm bad at English. It's kind of
if you're
weird.
If you're totally alone down here, what are you thinking?
Probably French.
French.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. Sometimes English, but I would say French most of the time.
I love that.
Yeah.
What a random side note. Sorry.
It's funny because, you know, like Lidge Shaw, and again, side note again, you know, but that's the podcast. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But Lidge Shaw.
Yeah.
Recordings to the Rockstar podcast.
Yeah.
I was with him at AES years ago.
Yeah.
And he's used to, you know, we speak in English, of course.
Yeah.
And at some point we met some people from Quebec.
Yeah.
Some artists from Quebec, and we started to chat in French, you know. And it was like, and the way it was communicating, the way, you know, the way it was moving and stuff, it's like, that's a brand new Chris. I don't know that Chris, you know, that's weird, you know.
I came back yesterday from Germany.
Okay.
You know, and so it is interesting when they start speaking in German, their voices change, their mannerisms change.
Yes.
Right? It is very interesting.
It is
like
different.
It is like instantly. It's like almost like a different person. They switch to English and I'm like,
and the French,
welcome back.
And the French I speak is a Quebec French, which is not the same as it's a different accent compared to France.
I love it.
You know, so it's less proper, I would say.
I love this. Yeah.
You know?
I love it. Yeah, it's like my friends from Mexico is a different Spanish than in Spain.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just a little more,
sure.
It's just a little more everyday.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not as formal.
Yeah, same for us.
Yeah.
Way less
formal.
formal.
Or British English versus American English. Same thing, right? It's less formal.
So for me to make some content in French
Yeah.
and reaching like the international French community, it's going to be a challenge.
That's interesting.
You know, it's okay.
Yeah, how would they say,
I think I would just speak with the Quebec.
Just do English.
That's what I've been doing then.
That was great English. Just do English. It's not my native language either. It's the only language I have, but it's not. I'm still learning.
So basically, this is at this point. So basically, you're asking if I think in French when my mix is done. This is what you were.
That's where
about
I was
to
going.
ask. Eh?
No.
Okay.
No, that was far more intelligent.
I'm trying
than
to
where I
come
was
back.
headed.
I'm just trying to come back to the topic, man.
Steer the ship off the rocks. Oh, our poor boat. Okay, so client involvement.
Okay.
Obviously, there's some input up front. There's some mixed references. There's all the stuff and the things that allow you to think it's done to their liking. You give them your 100% or my 85%. I've just learned my bar is lower than yours across the board, no matter what we talk about. This is what I've learned over these 4 episodes or whatever. Like, yeah, it's amazing. Everything about your life is
No,
just
you know what to expect now.
more interesting. Yeah, it's good. That's good. Super random question.
Yeah.
Not as random as the last one. Less random than the French bit.
I hope.
I know. I'm out there. What % of the time do you get mixed notes back where you're like, yes, that was great? Do you know what I mean? Because it's generally one or the other. I got one last week while I was out of town, and it was just this like amazing. It's 10 songs. So like, I love it. It was like 4 little notes across the whole album.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo. Yeah. What % of the time do you do that when you get mixed notes? Versus,
Honestly,
I was thinking about it the other day when I got that. I was like, how does this
that's
happen?
a good question. I rarely get discouraged when I get mixed revisions because most of the time they're going to be tiny stuff to do and stuff I don't mind.
I'd say same.
So yeah, I would say like most of the time, let's go with 70%
And-
of the time. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. That's a good revision.
And of that, what % of the notes do you agree with them?
So I would say maybe
If you've got it to 100, but they're saying something different, technically they're coming off your point of agreement.
yes.
They're deviating from your 100%.
Yes. I tend to make the difference between what is subjective and what matters.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So sometimes it could be like a mixed revision.
Oh, the bass is too low. Is a different comment than, it would be neat if my voice had more echo on it in the third chorus. Is a different thing.
Exactly. Yeah, vocal throw here. It would be cool. Okay, cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make. Yeah, sure. I don't mind. So that's like, okay, you like that.
Yes.
I didn't put it there in
Yeah.
the first place. I didn't feel the need to do it, but
the bass is too low for the whole song.
that could change the whole mix.
Yeah, and now you're into the personal space of the mixer.
Yes.
And you're like, well, what did you listen on?
Yes.
And why are you
start-
stupid?
you
Why
start
are
to
you
ask-
stupid? Or whatever. Like, it's like you start doing those things at midnight.
What's wrong with
What's
you?
wrong with you?
You take your meds this
Yeah,
morning?
your parents were mean to you. Like, it's, yeah, so you get into this, like, this zone of thinking, like,
Yeah.
how could they not hear this bass? It's so loud. Well, if I make it louder, it's going to ruin everything, right? So now that's a different thing.
Yeah. Or
When you're debating.
Yeah. Or when you get a comment that doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
Yeah, the bass sounds a bit to the left.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, but it's centered. I don't know what to
Yeah. If you turn your headphones around, it's too far to the right. How did you do that?
say. Yeah. So no, honestly, most of the comment, like the revisions I make for clients, are little things that are subjective, and when it's something a bit more significant, and it could affect like the whole mix in general, or other parts of the mix, because when you change one element, it's going to affect something else. Okay, so if that revision gets to affect a lot of like the main stuff in the mix, this is where I'm going to intervene and probably going to
I call those phone call notes.
Yes. So let's talk about it. Sometimes just a conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, leave it.
Yeah.
Here's what
I'm thinking.
But we need to say it because they're going to hire you because they trust you, because they like what you do, they like your work, and they want to know what you think.
Yeah.
So your input is important.
Yes.
But at the same time, they're paying, so they're going to have the final say.
Yes.
But you still need to just get it out there, and
How-
they're going to appreciate that.
How badly astray has it gone for you? What's your worst, like, take my name off of this?
It wasn't a mixing thing.
Okay.
It was a production in general thing.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't want to be.
And I think I told the story
yeah.
before.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
that was, or even I remember I was young at that time.
Yeah.
And it was just like a friend of mine brought me his bands recording. He just needed me to mix them. It was like, just a garage band trying to play together and, work it out. Didn't work pretty well. But, and he told him, it's a kind of a crappy project, but, it's just, we want it mixed, So, okay, I'm starting. I want to get my name known, in my area and stuff. So
Salim.
So,
Very good.
Exactly. But I said, there's no way I'm going to get more gigs with this project if I put my name on that. So I say, you know what? I'm going to mix it to help you out.
But my name is Steve Durkins. This was last month. Somebody called me about
not
that.
Durkins. Durkins. Let me spell it for you.
This was last month. I heard about this. People stopped talking to me for a while.
So that explains it.
Yeah, I've solved the mystery.
So that was one of the times I decided my friend was like, oh yeah, for sure, of course, man, no problem. Just mix it.
The other one is kind of the opposite of that is hey, they hand you the crappy thing and want it to sound like $100,000 record.
Yes.
That's the other one where you're like, this doesn't sound like the new whatever album. And I'm like, well, you had one mic. There was 6 people in your mom's garage.
Yeah. And
so that's the other one is the disappointment. Mm-hmm. Like the reality check mix might be a way to call it that. I'm like, dude, I made lemonade here.
I tried to do the reality check before.
Yes, that's true. That's valid. But they don't always believe you.
No, I know.
So then they take it to their nephew, who's also a mix guy, and he makes it worse. It's a weird thing. That is a weird thing. The psychology of hearing yourself, right? Or whatever. I sound like that? Like no matter how much you prepare them for that, there's a bit of like that culture shock where they hear a mix and then 2 weeks later, they're like, I kind of like it. But the initial notes you get where it's like, wait, like, do you get...
That could be a podcast on its own,
It is
especially for vocals.
Yeah.
The first time someone records vocal in the studio, then comes back in the control room and listens. Is that me?
That's me.
Like, yeah, that's you.
Yeah, it's like me listening.
For better or worse,
It's like me listening to this podcast the first time.
Exactly.
Like, who's that? Goober.
Steve Durkins.
That's me, Salim. Okay.
So, getting back to mix revisions. Okay, so in your opinion, how many mix revisions are needed, you think?
Now we're on a topic.
Okay, you have your mix to your taste, to 100% or 85%, whatever. So, and you send that out to the client. It comes back with revisions. How many mix revisions are needed from this point?
Oh, you're going to say I sound like a politician.
I know.
It depends on the person.
He does it again.
It really does. It depends on the person.
It does.
I have people that come back and with all their sincerity in their heart, they're like, here's what I'm thinking. And I'm like, you know what? I agree. I get it. Let's do this round. That's like a free round. Like, I see. You like vocals louder or softer, or you feel exposed, so you like them a little softer, or whatever. There's a reason. I'm feeling emotional about this for some reason as a client, and I feel like you can help me. I'm like, you know what? I got you. I just go across the board and just put up everything, whatever. That's great. If they come back and start nitpicking, oh, I played this out of tune, or the hi-hat hit is late, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a bad singer, but you didn't fix me enough, or whatever version of that there is. That's a different thing. Mm-hmm. And that's a different attitude and a different heart for me than, can you please? And so I have a client that I've done probably four records for. And he true story contacted me yesterday. We booked a call for Friday to do his 5th project. And he does 13 mix revisions per song, times 10. Every project, and I know it going in. And it is nitpicky little stuff.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it.
Yeah, sure.
I love his notes. I'm like, I get it. We should turn the bass off for that bar. Sorry I didn't tell you this sooner. I've been thinking about it the whole time. Those make me crazy.
Yeah, of course.
But there's that. And for some reason, when I do them, I'm okay. Because he's just trying to make truly the best art piece he can with no no delusions of grandeur or whatever. This is his, you know what I mean? So, so it depends. Political Steve says it depends.
But I agree with you. It does depend.
Mean, bossy people, like back in the day with labels and stuff, that was a different thing. That was people's cousins, brothers, roommate.
Yeah, I heard that.
Speaking to how they don't like any of the drum sounds, right? When the record's done. Like that kind of stuff. That was
for
mental.
me, when you get like revisions from family, from friends,
Yes.
people outside the project that don't even understand what the project is about, what the song is about, the
sent
feel,
it to
all the
my-
work and all that stuff. This is where, I don't know. I don't know if I can take your...
I sent it to
your
my brother,
revision
who's
too.
also a mix engineer.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, when those messages show up, like you're in it, and he thinks this and that and something else.
Yeah, I had that. I had those before.
I'll send you the tracks.
Yeah, tell them to mix it.
Yeah, I'll send it. I'm
At this
happy
point,
to
like,
send it to him.
sure.
Right. So that's it. That's the short answer. What is your if you average your entire life of mix revisions? What's your average number?
Oh, it depends.
Average.
Again,
What
it
average.
depends.
If you
Average,
took all the 13
I would
times
say-
and the 0 times.
4 to 6, I guess. Average.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's like 1.
Sometimes it's 0.
Sometimes it's 0.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But sometimes when it comes back and it's 0, everything is good. I'm kind of suspicious.
I almost want notes.
Yeah, I do.
I'm like, did you listen to?
Exactly.
Am I alone?
Because it's like, for me, it's not necessarily victory. It's like, okay,
No.
cool. But
Yeah.
because I listen to it and I have a bit of tweaks to do
Yeah.
myself. So
Yep.
I
know
just want to
exactly
make
what
sure.
you're
I
talking about.
just want to make sure you listen
Make
to it and you
something up.
or convince me it's okay. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could be a bit suspicious.
It is. I trust you. Like that.
Yeah.
And you're like,
no, I want to make sure you're happy because that's the thing. When I,
I don't
work with a
trust me
client-
that much. Like, what? Why do you, sir? Strange man.
But listen, my goal when I work with a client, I want them to be happy. I want that client to be, okay, I'm satisfied. I'm happy with your work. Happy. So if it takes 10 revisions to make the client happy, I don't mind. I don't care.
Yeah, and if you're cool, I'm cool.
So for me, I don't even charge extra for revisions.
No,
it's like,
I've never have.
it's a fee, like whatever. I'm confident enough in my work that I'm not going to be stuck with 25 revisions.
And
Okay.
yeah.
So, and whatever, I don't mind just, and I tell them always after revision 6, let me know if you need to, before we bounce it for mastering, let me know.
Yeah.
If it comes back after mastering, you
Yep.
want to get back to the mix, now you're going to pay an extra fee. But, you
Yep.
know, it's time now.
In all my years, I've
I don't
never
mind.
charged for revisions once. Like it's just, let's just get it done.
The only time I charge for revision, it's after mastering.
Yeah.
We send it back. You know, we
or
send
if
it to
we
it.
have to re-record something,
That's different.
that's another thing. Like
That's
I can't fix this guitar solo. You have to replay it.
Yeah.
Then we need to figure something out to make that happen.
Yeah.
If I'm going to take this, open this patient back up and unsew
Exactly,
his
yeah.
chest cavity and get back to his spleen, like we got to, right? Like surgery's done.
talk.
Yeah. He's in the recovery room and you want to do surgery again. Like, poor guy. Poor guy. So, all right. So,
So that's my answer about mixed revisions.
yeah.
Yeah.
And do you ever have to go back in and re-record something?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
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 Of course. Sometimes vocals, a line.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's going to be vocals.
Sometimes it's my idea. I'm mixing and I'm
Oh.
like, what would be really cool? You know what I mean?
And it
As
wasn't.
if there was like an ascending guitar line during this last chorus or whatever. Swing by and like, let's try it. Right? Like there's that. Like it's the mix is done, but it just needs a little bit of salt
And then
or
they
something,
were like,
right? Like,
then he came back to, remove it.
You're an
Delete
idiot.
that.
You're an idiot.
You're Durkins, aren't you, man?
No, I'm slim. If anybody wants to know, I shaved. I just shaved, but it's me.
So if I ask you the same questions, if you produce your own music, you're mixing your own music,
See what yes.
you're your own client, how mixed revisions
Interesting.
is gonna take you?
Interesting.
When are you going to consider your mix 100% done? Now that's a different ballpark.
Yeah, or even if and if I'm the client, or if the client is really, 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 really mine. Do you know those clients? There's the people that like they come and they do the thing, and it's you do the thing, and then there's the projects that are like you, like.
Yes.
Like you played, like there's the ones where I played, I
Yeah.
co-wrote and I played
Sure.
every instrument on it. And
I'll consider that your project.
Like that, those,
Yeah,
the ones that you're holding on too tightly
Yeah, exactly.
and you're kind of scared to let them go.
Yes.
Because you don't want to disappoint this person because they put so much trust in you, right? And you don't want to disappoint like Slim. You don't want to do that. Of
course.
Change names because it's so bad.
Exactly.
So
And go to
that one
Durkins.
gets more revisions. That one gets more listens, which leads to
It's
more
funny,
revisions.
eh?
Does that make sense?
It does because
Like I was on the
It's the
plane
same.
2 nights ago coming back and I had my Dropbox and I downloaded one of these projects, one of these ground up projects, and I was listening on the plane. And then I listened on a different plane, right? And each time I do that, I'm in my thing taking little notes. it's like, oh, the boom at the end of the second chorus is a hair late or whatever. So it's
Yeah,
a different listening thing. And there's the projects they come in, they just want you to mix. You have a listen maybe once in the car or something, and then you're like, yeah, sounds pretty good. And you kick it out the door, right? So I don't know. Does that answer that?
It does. It does. Like, this is where I struggle a lot. When it's my own music,
You hold more tightly.
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You know, a client, I'm going to, honestly,
Yes.
I even think I mix better for clients than myself.
100%.
You know,
100%.
it's way more of a challenge. I don't know. It's the pressure or whatever. I expect too much of myself.
You know too much. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Like, I know how the sound was made. I know how it sounded when I created this bass with the thing on it. And I know, you know what I mean? Like, you know too much.
And for me, it's not necessarily because I'm too close to the project, because I produced albums for years,
Yeah.
mixing, recording, all that stuff, and mixing, mix the stuff, and you know, same amount of revisions like I do when mixing only. You know.
Yes.
But when it's my own music, I don't know why I could go like.
And there's something about your own music, especially in my case, where I build a lot of tracks. Like, I'll build ground up, right? Like,
Yeah.
Like, I'm the only guy playing all the music over this thing, except the client and their guitar and their vocal, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That stuff, I like things for different reasons. So I like this synth in the second chorus, but then the client had played a guitar thing that's technically more important. But my synth thing is really cool, and I want both in there. But they don't, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's a bit of like, I know everything under the hood, and so I'm trying to give care to everything,
Yeah, exactly.
as opposed to just throwing everything in the soup and stirring it, which is a client mix, right? So there's a bit of that maybe as well. You know too much
I like
about
that.
why you did something.
You're right.
I brought in the sub bass because it gives energy, but I need to hear it, so I need to do that, which then folds the whole mix down because there's too much low end, right?
So-
It's that.
So what can we do to overcome this? You know, as music producers of our own music.
Well, historically, we would send it away. Back in the day, when
but
there was
we
a
don't wanna
budget,
send it away.
We would send it away. We would send it off to one of these guys whose names we talk about constantly, right? And that would be cool. There
but-
would be something cool about
Sure.
it. I did this whole thing, built the whole thing, and sent it off to this guy, and he
Of
sent
course.
back his interpretation of it.
Yeah.
Who can afford it? Not me.
No, exactly. And not most home studio.
Correct. And not the client that's had me wear all the hats to get it to this point. They're out of money at
So
this point.
I'm pretty sure we're not the only ones
No.
having us to struggle with
We're
this.
the average ones, I
with
think.
not being able to finish a mix.
And it's like, even at any level, it's a lot of the mix down stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's a common theme, is I've been working on this mix for a year and a half. Can you guys listen to it? Right? And then we listen to it, we give notes, and they're like, well, shoot, that's going to be another year. Right? Because
Yeah.
people are so passionate about their creation that is it fear? Yeah. Is there fear in letting go? As soon as I kick it out there, people get to talk about it. There's a bit of that maybe,
Oh, for sure.
right?
Of
so it's
course
fear.
there is.
Like,
Of
I have
course there
clients that
is.
have worked on records for 6 years, literally 6 years on an album, right? And they just come back a couple times a year and do a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, 6
right?
years, not full time, a full time 6 year thing, but
Correct.
still, it's still 6 years.
Correct.
Yeah.
But they just don't want to let it.
They don't
So
want to
there's
let it go.
And so maybe there's a bit of that even with us,
Yes,
in ourselves.
I think so.
Right? Little couch time here. But are we afraid? And then we're on top of everything else, we're kind of putting ourselves out there. Right this second, we're like, hey, we mix things and we're teaching something.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of that too. It's like when the football coach goes out and can't throw the football as good as the players. There's a bit of that too.
There's
where,
that
where
too.
you're like, oh man,
Definitely.
coach ain't the best player, right? And so coach was a great player back in his or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So there's a bit of all that for us, or me anyway. I don't know about you.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, there's a bit of that
Mm-hmm.
weighs on this for me. That if I put your name on my thing, I want people to like you. So yeah, I don't know. This has gone sideways in a weird way.
A bit, no, but you know, there's lots of people struggling with this.
Many
people.
people.
I'm one of them.
It's a common theme, and I
is.
notice it amongst even the mixed down crew that we're all struggling with similar things,
So what
regardless of what we do or who
What
we
can we do to overcome this?
are. I think for me, and I'm not. I did that session I was talking about where I put it in the cabin we live in, and I built a studio over a couple of days to do this project in this wood cabin we live in, and I wanted this brass band to be in this room. So I just dragged everything up from the studio, from storage, and built a studio. And then I left town, and so the second and third day I had to bring in a guest engineer. And so he came the first day to overlap with me, and he was walking out, and he just goes, "You did this?" And I was like, "I did this." He's like, "Alone for 2 days?" I was like, "Yeah." I just was here alone with my AirPods in, and I just dragged all 40 music stands up and mic stand, and it was that, and every cable and he just goes, "You don't like to ask for help, do you?" Was his line to me.
Get out.
And I went, "I guess." He's like, "I would have come, like, you sent me a message, I would have been here. We would have done this in half the time. We would have talked." And I was like, I didn't think of that. I just did it. I just do it. That's just what I do, right? And so that's part of my personality. That's where I'm going with this is there's a bit of the community you're building is the answer, I think. I think the answer is in better community amongst us people who toil away in little rooms alone.
Totally agree.
And I think it's good. And my personality is not to go, "Hey, Chris, check out my mix. Can you do notes for me?" I just don't do that naturally.
Yeah.
I need to do that. I should do that. We should be sending each other mixes every day, you and me. Right?
I totally agree.
Like I've said before, you should be prepping my mixes and I should be prepping your mixes. So I line things up different and slap some stuff on that I would do. And you go, "Oh, I see what you did there." Right? Like it's that. "Oh, you put a little slap thing on the thing and you fuzz this." And like, why don't we do that? And so all that to say, not to plug you as somebody who's built the thing.
Exactly.
But what you're doing is the answer.
Yeah.
These mix online community groups.
Yeah, with MCC.
Of people doing notes and weighing on each other and people now I know in there are starting to send mixes.
Yeah.
And starting to write together and starting to break off into their own little camps.
Yeah.
To do what we need to do more of.
Yeah. Those people are mainly home studio producers.
Yes.
They record their own music.
And at the end of the day, so are we.
Exactly.
Right?
And they need people to listen to what they do to have
we are no different than the people we're giving notes to. They should be giving notes to us too.
Exactly.
Some of them mix better than us.
I know.
There's a couple of mixes where I'm like, "Holy Moses, you should be running this right now." Like, right? So it's that. It's coach doesn't always throw the ball the best. He's not the fastest guy in the field. He knows a lot of stuff.
He's a good coach.
He knows a lot of stuff, right? And so there's a bit of that even for us. Whereas coaches,
and funny enough,
we have to put ourselves out there more to do that.
Yeah,
and that's the answer.
And same for vocal coaches, for example. Like the vocal coach, not necessarily the best vocalist. You know,
I remember 20 years ago somebody saying at the absolute top of his game that Tiger Woods has a golf coach, right? And you just go,
exactly.
Who's that guy?
Yeah,
who's Tiger Woods' golf coach?
Yeah.
Right? And so there's a bit of that, right? And
of course.
His golf coach, I hope, still finds joy in playing golf and loving the game and the technicalities of the game and the joy of the game and the passion of the game and sharing the game with other people, right? And so there's a bit of that for us. And so, maybe the semi-psychological...
No, I agree.
We've been on some tangents here, but maybe in this, my learning in the last 4 hours we've been talking is we need to work more as community members. And so when is the mix done? Maybe we need to change that answer to when other people weigh in and contribute and tell us, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and not your mom.
Not my mom. No, she's a wonderful woman.
I'm sure she is.
She's an amazing, beautiful child of God.
What about your dad?
Same.
Okay.
Yeah, they put up with each other, so they're both beautiful people. But
you're not going to send a mix to them.
No.
Exactly.
But I also do. I send mixes to my mom.
Interesting.
It's super interesting because she's like, I can't understand the words in this, right? Like, so she comes at it from a whole different. Anyway, point being, maybe when is the mix done through all this? My thoughts have changed a little. Maybe we need to move that.
What that changed?
Maybe,
what changed? Maybe
the 85% for me needs to be to send it to other people I trust.
Oh, okay.
More than just to the client and to my car for myself to listen to. I need to send it to you.
We should start that.
We should start that.
We should start to send mixes to each other.
Why don't we do that?
Why don't we?
Why don't we? Because there's trust. Like, I'm not going to be like, you suck. You should call yourself Johnson or something. Like, don't even use my name. Like, and so why don't we all do that more? That's it.
There you go.
This has landed in a whole different place than it started. We just took a flight to a whole new continent. I don't know. Please.
So I'll wrap this up with this.
I was going to say, if you are somewhere and you can comment, please comment. Because this is an interesting conversation. I genuinely don't have the answer to this.
It is.
This is one of those things where I have no answer. There's no answer to when is a mix done.
Okay, I will say this though. On a more practical side. Okay. Once we have all the comments, all the mix revision stuff, when you're at the point, and actually we started with that actually, and you're the one who came up with this.
Thank
when
you.
we're at the point where we just have like, we're just doing tiny moves,
Yeah.
0.2 dBs there, 0.5 dBs there, on insignificant moves, subjective move. At this point, like just wrap it up, bounce it, release it to the world, and whatever you're not happy with, don't repeat it on the next production.
Yeah,
That's
you get to
But
move on.
Move on.
Yeah,
Just move
once
on.
I said to somebody, it's like rearranging the 3 pieces of furniture in your prison cell.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It becomes that at some point.
That would be my answer.
And there's something too. I've gotten very esoteric today. I don't know,
I don't know
man.
what's
I don't know
happening,
what to put in
man.
this cup, but it's amazing. It's doing wondrous things. it's the point where you need to get this out of your life a little bit to take on new things, right? Like you can only hold on to so many mix projects and revisions at a time, right? At some point, you've got to let it go into the wild and become a lawyer or a doctor or a fisherman or a tap dancer. And then you get to introduce some new children into your life to raise, right? So there's something about that too that's psychologically just letting it
Because you're going to get to a
go.
point, the more you work on that mix, the more it's
bad it gets.
it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
It's going to get worse. And going to go back and listen to mix 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's amazing.
And you will probably, chances are that you're going to like them
That's
better.
an interesting thing historically, how many times that's happened too.
Michael Jackson Thriller.
We
I think
did,
there's one of the songs, they came back to mix 2 after 47, 49 versions?
Yes. And that's the one we
And
know.
the one was the second
Yes.
one, so it tells a lot.
There's something to that too.
It tells a lot. So just get it out.
So the answer is, to the initial question.
Okay, Steve,
What?
we're ready for a Q&A.
We have more.
I know.
That episode.
Man, you've been talking like crazy.
That episode was something. Man, we were out in the weeds. At one point, we were talking about French mind thinking, and
I don't know. When we first started, you told me, this is going to be a quick one.
I did. I thought this would be a quick topic.
Yeah. So if you're still listening to the podcast or
good for
watching the
you.
video on YouTube,
Good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That means
Thank
a lot.
him.
Now, the question we have from Andy, our good friend Andy Tullis. Oh, okay. It goes like,
I know
I'm having a
Andy.
hard time wrapping my head around what to listen for when mixing in mono.
First off, Professor.
Wow.
Why mix in mono? Give me the Chris notes on that.
Like, at first,
Salim
I
notes.
don't mix in mono.
Ever at all?
Honestly, I'm going to check stuff in mono.
Yeah.
Okay, but some will actually start building their mixes in mono and then switch to stereo once they have like a right balance
have you ever
and stuff.
done that?
No.
I've done it.
Maybe I did a couple of times.
I've done it a couple times, and it's awesome.
You like that? Eh?
I loved it.
Okay, you know what?
Ask me if I did it again.
I'm glad you do.
I forgot. I just forgot to do it. You know what I mean? It's one of those
But
things.
no, I'm glad you do. I'm glad you
Like
do.
when I did it, I loved it, and I saw the advantage of it, and it made sense, and it like mentally, emotionally, it makes sense. There's something about emotional mono, and like this guitar line that's over here is now here, and it changes the color of what you're painting, right?
Yeah,
it's
sure.
interesting. And then when you blow it out to stereo, you like fall out of your chair. Like it is such a mind bender
Because
when you hit the bunk.
Because the idea is when you're balancing your track and everything is collapsed to mono, you do things differently
Yes.
about a frequency response and stuff like that. So you tweak the EQ differently from one
100%.
instrument to the other to to leave space and stuff. So that is the idea.
And there are weird things like, and I would say it's trickier nowadays. And I don't know why I would say that. Why would I say that? Because so much of what we do is so created to be stereo.
Yes.
Synthesizers that used to be mono, and then they would just get put over here with the pan pot knob on the
They're all stereo now.
on the old Neve, are built now stereo. And when you collapse them, they make you sad.
They do.
Right? And then when you make them stereo, they make you happy. So there's a bit of like, why would I do what it's not meant to be? Does that make sense?
It does.
And so more and more, and even like, you do a hard rock thing where, it used to be, Ozzy, like it was like a guitar or two. And now it's like 37 guitars on each side built that way, right? They're made to be this far apart. And so when you collapse them, they just kill each other, right?
Yeah.
So there's a bit of that. So I don't know. That doesn't answer Andy's question at all.
Yeah. Now I think he's referring to what to listen for when you check your mix in mono. I think it's like more than mixing maybe checking your mix in mono for phase and stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
So what do you listen for?
A big one for me is the main reason when I will fold to mono intentionally, even like while 10% into a mix, is that low mid. That's where for me mono reveals.
Okay.
Like you got a bunch of guitars with the bass and the kick, and they're all in this like 1 to 300. As soon as you fold to mono, that all disappears, or it's 10 times louder than it should be, or whatever. And to me, that if I can carve that into mono, when I take it back to stereo, it doesn't sound different. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
It did a thing technically that doesn't make the song sad in stereo, emotionally, right? I don't know if that makes sense.
It does.
So, but a full band in that 300 in there, piano, guitar, bass, that's where mono reveals for me all the evil
Interesting.
in a mix that I don't hear when it's pulled apart.
It's funny because I rarely check stuff in mono. Except to the exception on drum overheads and stuff like that, stuff that where there's
correlation
phase to make sure. So this I'm gonna of course check this out in mono, making sure that the drum bounce sounds good in mono. Okay, then I'm gonna go back to stereo, stuff like that when I mix. But to start a mix entirely in mono, to balance stuff out, I don't mind that, and I did that before, just to balance stuff out before adding plugins and stuff and EQing, just balance the tracks out.
And it's very relaxing.
It does.
Something about it is very relaxing to me. If I put everything in mono, hit play, and kind of balance, to me, there's just it doesn't do the same thing.
Yeah.
There's something about it that feels. The other thing I will say, I'm sitting here thinking while you're talking. I'm not staring at your mouth because I love you. I do love you, but I was just staring at your mouth watching you talk because I was thinking, and the thought was the one time I will check mono frequently is when I'm fake stereoing.
Oh,
so
yes.
I'll do I end up doing a lot of jazz and a lot of like legit old school, beautiful. And so it's very wide, and the piano is wide, and the upright is, mid-side recorded, and everything's mid-side, right? Even like the solos, so I've got all this weird kind of fake stereo happening, and then I'm adding room. I'm putting it in the Ocean Way room or whatever. And so I've got all this questionable phase trickery going on. And then I'm widening the whole mix a bit to make it.
So in that case, you're going to use...
there's a lot of mono checking for me. Bit by bit to make sure I'm not just destroying.
And so to answer Andy's question, you listen for phase problems, I guess.
Disappearing things.
So,
that would be my very non-technical.
So if things start to sound thinner or lighter.
Different. Do things sound different? If I listen to the bass, my beautifully mid-side recorded upright acoustic bass, and then I put it in mono, does it still sound like the same guy playing the same bass in the same place? That's kind of my thinking.
I see.
Is the drummer still in the same drummer, same drum kit? And if it's not, if suddenly he fell down a well or something, if the drummer falls down a well in mono, something's wrong.
So there you go. There you have it. You have it. What you have to listen to how the sound, it sounds like, if you get a thinner sound, something smaller, if there's missing something, this is where you have to
and vice versa. If it sounds way, way, way better in mono, then that's also a problem. There's also something wrong there, right? If I go to mono and suddenly it sounds awesome, and then I go to stereo and I feel sad, there's something wrong there too, right? So it's an inverse, converse, whichever verse is the bad one, problem.
Now, the only thing I'm going to say though, if someone wants to experiment on mixing in mono, or when you check your mix in mono, the balance is going to be off. This is what I always found. Balance is going to be off. So what you need, I actually made a video years ago, I think like 2-3 years ago about that, about mixing in mono, stuff you need to pay attention to. If you check your mixes in mono at some points, let's not forget that the center, what we call the center, doesn't exist. We have 2 speakers, left and right. That's all we have.
And 2 ears.
In stereo,
And 2 ears.
And 2 ears, that's it.
Your nose is in the middle.
So what makes a sound in the middle are sounds that are equally at the same volume on the 2 speakers, left and right speakers. Now they're going to sound in mono. So when you sum that up to mono, those signals are going to be louder depending on the panel you have on your DAW. It's probably like a 3 dB or something, So vocals, bass, kick, snare. Don't be surprised. Don't fall off your chair if when you sum that up to mono, they're going to be louder than your pan guitars.
In the hard pan.
Okay? Yeah. The hard pan stuff are going to be quieter. Okay? And that's okay. And my recommendation for someone who wants to mix in mono and experiment a bit with that, pay attention to this aspect of mixing in mono. And compare with your references too. You're going to find the same thing. You know, evaluate. You know,
Interesting.
check your reference. How did they
True.
sound in mono?
True.
You know, and compare with your mix.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're using that reference to your
Yeah.
stereo mix and want to get closer to that reference.
Yeah.
Sum it up to mono. Check it out.
Yeah.
Do the same with your reference, and pay attention to those little details about you know what sounds louder and quieter. Panned instruments compared to centered instruments. So just stuff to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Because the problem sometimes it can happen is like people are going to say, oh, okay, now I'm in mono and now my vocal's way too loud. I'm going to bring that
Make a
down.
decision.
Rebalance
Yeah.
everything according to what they hear in mono, and then it go back to stereo. And,
Which is how everybody listens in stereo.
That's the thing
Right.
too. So there's a part of me that's going to say, you know what, a bit like CLA was saying in the podcast or an interview.
That
or
kid's
something.
going places too.
I know. I heard about him before.
Oh.
But he was saying like, you know, I don't care much about mono. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know, I mix in stereo, and if someone like, and he was like, okay, what about the guy that listened to only one headphone?
That's his problem.
Exactly. I don't care about. I'm not mixing music for the one.
That's his problem.
You're sharing a pair of headphone with his friend.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, find your other
So
AirPod.
I'm leaning way more towards
Agree.
that part.
Agree.
However, I kind of like what you were saying too. You know.
There's something about it.
Yeah, you know, I'm not.
There's something about it.
I'm actually maybe gonna start.
It's not,
to,
yeah,
to experiment with it.
And it's not volume, it's EQ. That would be a caveat to that for me.
okay. So
Because I'm not making big volume decisions.
No.
I'm just hearing that those two guitars are fighting.
the relationships.
Yeah.
Between.
So they're
tracks.
fighting here. They're fighting here, you just don't notice it as much, right? But if they're fighting, so there's weird, you can hear things.
Okay,
right?
but if they're fighting here in mono,
Yeah.
but it's okay panned,
But
like
if-
in stereo,
But if
is
all
that
I
a
have,
problem?
but if all I have to do is a little thing to make this solved, then technically, it's
yeah, it's technically, but is
Right?
that really a problem?
it's not a problem.
What about Atmos?
But better is better, and it's doing something to the meters. Like the consolidated sound block is aware of this problem, right?
Sure.
And the mastering guy sees something happening on his graph that I don't hear, but I can tell it here. So why wouldn't I solve it if I can do it in 4 seconds?
Okay, point. Good point.
Thank you.
I'll give you that. But now, what about
My
Atmos?
last one for this entire season of
'Cause now
podcast.
the mono thing is
Don't
gonna
talk
be-
about Atmos. Don't
No,
do it. Don't do it.
Dude, man,
Don't
the,
do it.
The mono thing is going to be like
I'm
old
gonna have
school.
to go get some rum if we're gonna start talking Atmos right
I'll
now.
leave it at this. We're
That's a
entering
whole 4-part.
I know,
episode.
but reality is like
It's coming.
they won't care about mixing in mono. Now it's going to be like stereo is going to be the new mono.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
CLA is going to be like, I don't need stereo. You
I don't care about stereo.
guys only got 2 speakers.
I'm not going to mix music for people who has only 2 speakers.
I love it. So what a great time to be alive.
Like you said, it's
We started
It's
this-
a topic for another
We
video.
started this in mono and ended in Atmos. This is this is what we do.
This is what we do.
Shall we end this now?
We shall.
Or do you have more questions?
No,
for
it's
me?
about we need to stop.
We gotta stop.
Yeah, I think that's enough.
Push the thing.
All right. Bye.